Hi, I'm Aatish Taseer. I'm an Indian writer, an Indian writer with a Pakistani father, and I'm sitting and chatting to Kamila, who's Pakistani, and we've just been exchanging love letters between India and Pakistan. Not always love letters, but
letters at least.
Yeah. And so you were saying that you've actually spent a lot of time here.
You know, the first time I came to Delhi, which was 2004, I came here before ever having been to Lahore, which is shocking. I was 30 years old and I hadn't been to Lahore. And my Lahori friends were just appalled. They said, you can't go to India before coming to Lahore. And it's true that somehow, you know, I just grew up not going there. Now I've been to Lahore several times.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably still true that I've, you know, in some total of days, spent more time in Delhi than Lahore.
Does it feel unsafe? Because Bombay, if we carry on with that comparison, Bombay feels quite safe in some ways.
Bombay does feel safe. When I was in Bombay, I felt completely safe.
Yeah.
No, Karachi feels unsafe.
Feels unsafe.
Yeah, and Karachi has always felt unsafe. But you know, these things
Would
are
you
so
go for
comparative.
like a walk along the sea face or that kind of thing?
I'd go for a walk along the sea face. I mean, I drive alone there and all of that. But it's just this thing on the periphery of your vision that you're sort of aware of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is one of the big differences between India and Pakistan. There were two things I noticed the first time I went to India, and I think Bombay was the first place I flew into. One was statues, right? Because in Pakistan you don't really have figurative.
Oh yeah,
right,
of
stuff.
course.
You don't have figurative art, so you don't have statues of the great men of history. And the other was, I looked around and thought, oh, no guns. Because it just, I mean, Karachi...
Oh, you saw guns all the time in Karachi.
Karachi all the time, this idea of this Kalashnikov culture of the 80s.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether, actually I'm interested in whether Delhi and Bombay, well, let's talk about Delhi, whether you feel levels of safety have changed here over the years.
Well, I have to feel them on behalf of girls, you know, like it's not something I feel, but I have to now, there's enough evidence and enough people telling you all the time how unsafe they feel, especially if they come from out of town, that you can't ignore it, that it does exist.
But do you think of Lahore and Delhi as sister cities?
Well, I'll tell you the difference is that the Delhi I grew up in was exclusively a Punjabi city.
Right.
It was very much like, and in the last 15 or 20 years, Delhi has become a big cosmopolitan city for India. It's full of communities from elsewhere, and especially in the working classes, it's one of those rare cities that almost doesn't belong to anyone. Whereas Lahore is still a strong, like it's a regional city in some ways.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, in some ways that cosmopolitanism in Delhi is new.
I mean, it's funny to hear because, of course, if you're from Karachi, then Karachi is full of Dilliwalas who are, not Punjabi, but who sort of...
So that side of
I mean, my father's family is from Delhi.
Yeah. So that side of Delhi is completely... I mean, the old Delhi that really was closer to Lucknow than it was to Lahore doesn't really exist except in the way of in the old city or
Maybe
something.
Maybe it exists more in Karachi.
Yeah, exactly. It's been moved completely.
It's been moved,
What's you say that, we were talking about this earlier about a feeling, is there a kind of exhaustion in Pakistan at the moment? Do you feel this thing that I said that I felt that people were dispirited? Do you feel it too?
As you probably know, Pakistan is a place where people are always talking politics.
Yeah,
I mean, always have, and all my life have always been talking politics, consistently, incessantly in any situation. And this time, when I was there and there were peace talks with the Taliban happening, I suddenly realized that people were talking about it much less than they usually do. And it wasn't that they weren't interesting, but there was this feeling of we don't even know what to say anymore.
Right.
And to bring people in Karachi to the point where they don't even know what to say anymore. I mean, that's...
Yeah, and perhaps to stop believing in politics as the solution. To stop believing that whatever future is going to come to them will come through a political process. Is that what it means? Like, is there a kind of despair with...
I wonder because, I don't know that there was much belief in a political process in the 80s and the Zia years, and people are still talking about it all the time, right?
That Benazir election was full of hope. Like, I remember my mother covering it, and it was
electrifying. But I mean, it should be said, I was there in May last year when we had elections, when I was standing at the polling booth for about 7 hours because there was a mess up, so we stood... And May last year, suddenly, and it is the thing about Pakistan as well, that a few weeks before it felt like everyone was depressed and no hope, and suddenly there we were all standing to vote, and there was this...
Carrying out the first legal transfer of power.
The first legal... And there was this extraordinary optimism and hope, which we all recognize as sort of false.
Yeah.
But it was there. It does. I mean, Pakistan, I think, does surprise itself constantly. And I think that's partly why, when people talk about relations with India and, what do the people of Pakistan want, and, maybe the mood is angry or the mood is anti-India. And I really do think that Pakistan can surprise itself and everyone else in ways you don't expect. That if there's the right moment and the right thing is said, suddenly you'll find that actually people are optimistic about elections, or people think peace is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
But you need to give them the opportunity.
And this big battle that seems like it's brewing, that's going to be... Like, do you feel that people are behind it? Like there's the will to fight it? Or is there...
I mean, when you say people, who are we talking about?
Outside the drawing room classes,
it's
outside all
difficult.
of that.
There was an article in one of the newspapers in Dawn a few weeks ago by Cyril Olmeida, who's a really...
Oh yeah, I like him very much.
Really fine journalist. It was called The Most Dangerous Man in Pakistan.
Right.
Right. Who do you think it was about?
Ali Zafar.
Imran Khan.
Right.
And Cyril's point in there, and I think there was a defamation suit brought by Imran's party against the newspaper for this. Cyril's point was that previously anyone who spoke sort of favorably or generously about the Taliban was recognized as belonging to one of the really right-wing religious groups, and people dismissed it as, these guys are extremists, they're the JUI, the Jamaat, whatever. And what Imran did is to make that conversation mainstream and to package it in
to bring that bad politics to the center.
And to package it in terms of national interest and not crazy Islam, but just sort of, sort of a more genuine Islam.
Yeah.
And to talk in terms of, anti-Americanism, and these people are just defending their rights, and we need to, acknowledge them. And I think he had a very good point that Imran Khan has been really sort of shockingly dangerous in doing this, in making this
scary.
In making this soft on the Taliban conversation really mainstream.
Yeah, with no harsh words ever to say to them.
No harsh words. I mean, even when he condemns even when the Taliban, there's an attack on the province which he's governing, and the Taliban says we did it, Imran will still say, no, these are people trying to give the Taliban a bad name, and you think, but they've said we did it. So it's really extraordinary. I mean, it's really a sort of bad news. But I mean, you've got elections coming up here. Do people feel hopeful, do you think, about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there is a feeling of hope. It's a political system that has thrown up options. Like, you might not like Kejriwal, but he's a new kind of guy.
Yeah.
And you might not like Modi, but he does represent an option both in ideology and in the kind of direction that the country might go in. I don't particularly, I'm full of reservations, but I think that I like to see the political system responding. And I think that it has been. So people see, it's an energized election, an exciting election, I think.
You think things will change for India-Pakistan relations at all? Do you have a sense of that?
I think that if both places, the happier times that there are, and I mean really as far as prosperity and economics goes, it will immediately improve relationships, and I think that could be in the offing.
Yeah.
What are you going to do as far as hanging out in Delhi goes?
Well, I'm working awfully hard. I've got a book launch on Wednesday. I've got a new book out.
Oh, wonderful!
So,
you must
read
that book.
You must read that book. It's called A God in Every Stone. See how we just get that in. But I'm also just here. I'm going to see my friends. I've got relatives here. So
half your family,
half my family. Half the family, and 47 left, and half stayed on. So hang out. And I really like being in Delhi. It's full of things to see.
Fantastic.
So, some shopping.
All right. Well, listen. Have a great time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.